I'll tell you, I've been a car guy my whole life. I'm originally from New Jersey, from Vernon, New Jersey, right up. You could drive 5 minutes and go over the New York State border. We're like right up at the top of the border there, sharing with you guys. And yeah, when I was a kid, my dad, in my mind's eye, it seemed like it was every day, but in reality, it was probably, I don't know, once a paycheck, whatever it was. He would bring me home when he'd come home from work. He would stop at the store to get whatever, lottery tickets, whatever. And he would sometimes bring me home a Matchbox car or a Hot Wheels car. And I had just this hope chest full of Matchbox and Hot Wheels cars. And I used to just play with those in our New Jersey basement for hours. I've just always been a car guy. My dream car as a kid was the DeLorean from seeing Back to the Future. I was lucky enough to own a DeLorean from 1999 to 2011. No, 2000, early 2012. It's 12 years. They're 12 of the greatest years. I feel so grateful to have had my dream car. And then, Tesla came around, and I started to, I never really had felt so strongly about a car and a car company other than DeLorean. Because I found there are these just totally coincidental. I mean, obviously, there's no direct connection, but these just weird parallels between the DeLorean Motor Company story and the Tesla story, in that you had they're both American startup car companies run by larger than life CEOs, John DeLorean in the case of DeLorean, and of course Elon here. They were both very safety minded. John DeLorean, if you don't know much about him, he really pushed for a lot of safety initiatives at GM during his time there before he left. The DeLorean itself was actually a very safe car. He was big into longevity, wanted the cars to last a while. The DeLorean, the DMC-12, was a stainless steel car, which full circle now with the Cybertruck. And there was even a British connection, specifically a Lotus connection. The DeLoreans were built in Ireland, with the suspension work was done by Colin Chapman and Lotus. And of course, with Tesla, the original Roadster was built by Lotus, the gliders, and then they were sent over here to the San Francisco area, where the battery and the PEM units would go in the car. They would do final assembly here. So there were just all these strange little, and they were both kind of, they're both DeLorean and Tesla are maybe not in a malicious kind of way, but they're both kind of giving the middle finger to the rest of the car industry, right? Like DeLorean wanted a car that would outlive its owner and be this, safe, elegant thing. And, ultimately he didn't succeed, but then Tesla's doing the same thing with saying, hey, we need to get fossil fuel cars off the road. We're going to build electric cars that are better than gas cars. So that's how I really just got attached to Tesla and started loving it.
I think you say on your, I mean, this just started as something you said, let me see how long I can go, out of my, and now literally guys, you need to understand that Ryan has done this. Please correct me if I'm wrong. You've done this every single week for how many weeks?
All of them but one. So in the first Christmas, so holiday 2015, I took a week off during Christmas because I thought, it's the holidays. No one really cares. There's not necessarily a lot going on. But then, I don't know, after that, there was something where the way I'm wired, I just thought, if I'm not putting a show out every week, there's a million free podcasts or YouTube videos you could be spending your time with. You're spoiled for choice. I got to be there every week if I'm going to build an audience and maintain an audience. So, Ryan, out of 290, I guess last night was 291, that'll be out tomorrow. I record them on Friday nights and put them out on Sunday mornings. So I guess, I've recorded, or I've put out a show 291 of the last 292 weeks. So
Ryan, that in and of itself is absolutely amazing. And we have 22 people on our call, by the way. We had 60 signed up. Little disappointed. I don't know where those people are. But what puts you, I mean, you've been on the map. You're one of the better ones. You're succinct. You are so knowledgeable. You have some Tesla insiders that I want to definitely talk to, and some people too as well. But let's be honest, guys, who can interview Elon Musk? I know a lot of you are excited. You have questions. about that. So I want to split this hour into two. I want to talk a little bit about Elon, because everybody's dying to ask you some questions about that, and then just your general knowledge of Tesla. I know you're a big fanboy, but what I love about you is that you're very critical as well. Like if there's something you don't like about Tesla, you're not bashing them by any means, but you're actually talking a little bit about what they can do to improve. So if you're okay with it, can we ask you some questions about Elon?
Please.
All right, that's just amazing that you actually, I first have to say, when you sat down, how nervous were you? Or maybe you weren't.
I was. And in my day job, so I work for IGN, which is a video game and entertainment website. We're kind of the best analog, if you're not familiar with the video game world at all. We're kind of the entertainment weekly of video games, in the sense that, like, we review upcoming games, we review the new ones, preview the upcoming ones. We're just covering the world of video games. We don't make them, we just cover them. And within the course of my job there, I interview a lot of game developers. I actually have an interview show on IGN. I really enjoy doing that. It's one of my favorite parts of my job, is interviewing game developers. And so I had, heading into the Elon interview, I had a lot of practice. That was the good news.
It was obvious.
But yeah, and I knew I would be prepared. But yeah, for game developer interviews at IGN, I'm at the point, I stopped being nervous long ago. But for Elon, I was nervous because I just wasn't quite sure what to expect. And I had been warned, not that this is not like a personal thing against Elon, but I'd been told he might have to leave suddenly if like some pressing thing comes up. He might just, obviously I'm not a priority. I know that. I'm nothing, it's amazing I'm even in the room. So it's like if something starts going on, he's got to go. If he's, you may have heard Elon say, he said this publicly, he's talked about at Tesla, if you don't feel like you need to be in a meeting anymore, just get up and leave. So it's like, I've been warned that he might just, if it's not going well, that he might just end it. And
you're not hitting the mark. You're not as good as I thought you were, Ryan. I'm out of here. Well, obviously that was not the case. Right.
So long story short, I just kind of wasn't sure what to expect. I never met him to that point. I'd been at Tesla events and seen him, from the crowd, but I'd never met him. I'd never spoken to him other than just Twitter exchanges. But so I was nervous because I wasn't sure what to expect. But real quick, before I'll let you get on to more questions, I'll just add, by the time he actually came in the room, I was no longer nervous. It weirdly worked out because the interview was scheduled for, I believe, 6:30 or 7 p.m. That Tesla PR kind of did me a solid by scheduling it at the end of his day with the hope, because I had asked them for an hour. I was like, can I get an hour? I really need the time to dig in and really get going with him. Half an hour just goes by like that. And they said, I'm sorry, we can only promise you half an hour. If he's, maybe he can give you a few extra minutes. But they did do me the courtesy of scheduling it near the end of the day. But they also said, there's a good chance if his other meetings are running long, he might be late. So, of course, I got to Tesla very early. Obviously, I'm there, I'm ready to go. And they put me in a conference room, which is where the interview is going to happen. And sure enough, he ended up being at least an hour late, which again that's not his. It's just that what they warned me about happened, or his other meetings went on. But it worked out for me because when I got in there, and I'm saying, I'm just totally. There's a lot of nerves. Yeah. But they put me on ice for an hour, and it worked out because by the time he walked in, I had totally relaxed and mellowed out, and I was ready to go when he came in the room.
Yeah, we have so many questions, so I appreciate the brevity on some of these, and I know I would love to expand on a lot, but I really want to try to get through these. Sure. What were there any questions he said prior to, look, don't ask us, we're not talking about? Did they give you some guidelines?
Nope. No,
really?
They did not. To their credit, I have run into that before in my day job, and I don't like it. I mean, I don't think any journalist likes it, and sometimes we won't agree to it. I mean, with Elon, obviously the ball's in their court. So if they say, don't ask about the pickup truck, which that was because that was before the Cybertruck was announced.
Sure.
I would have had to have steered clear of that, but there were no guardrails put on it.
I love it. I love it. So, we all think we know what he's like. We've seen thousands of interviews with him. When it comes to, on camera, off the camera, was he what you expected? Is he wound up? Is he a fun guy, disciplined guy? Like, what did you see from him that might be different than what we think?
I was extremely fortunate. So I thought, again, this guy's got 7,000 jobs. So I thought in my head, my expectation was as soon as the interview's over, it's going to be get up, shake hands, and he's going to be gone. But I had asked his team ahead of time, would it be okay if I got a picture? And so I had cleared that ahead of time, and they had said okay. And so at the end of the interview, get up, shake hands, and I thought it was just going to be like boom, quick picture, and he's going to be gone. And so Elon goes, no, let's go out here because we're in like a dull conference room.
Right.
So he says,
right.
let's go walk out here and just see if there's a better spot. And we ended up, there was a cool like giant blow up illustration of a Model S on the wall that we ended up wandering over to that to take a picture. And his PR team, like they're just kind of like chatting amongst themselves. And I got really lucky that I had a good 5+ minutes privately with Elon.
That is great.
And while I won't sort of tell you what that was about, just that was a nice moment for us. But what I will say to answer your question is that what I got from him is that he's the same guy off mic, off camera as he is on. And that is it. He was just all about the mission and I think he's focused basically every waking moment on what his companies are doing. Like he is just a incredibly driven guy. It wasn't like we went off mic and we're by ourselves and he's like, so tell me about your dog. And hey, my dog does this weird thing. And it was just, we were talking about Tesla. We were talking about, and these were things that he was bringing up,
right.
So yeah, he seems like the same guy off air as he is on air.
I love it. Well, that's good to know. Let me ask you, I know there's some people on the call that obviously listened to your interview with him, and you've mentioned how much you prepared and over prepared, and you asked amazing questions, but is there something that you look back now and say, I wish I would have asked him?
So of course I had plenty more questions. There's no doubt I had many, but that was the nice part about that experience was since I did end up getting an hour. I kept looking over because it was we were at a big conference room table. He was at the end and I was next to him, 90-degree angle. And so we're just looking at each other across the corner of the table. And then over here is his team. And so out of the corner of my eye, I would glance over and check in with his team and, waiting for like a wrap it up signal. And we ended up going long enough where it finally got to the point in my head, I was like, I think it's been like way more than half an hour. I think it feels like it's been about an hour. And sure enough,
right?
Yeah. And so he clearly enjoyed the interview enough where he kept it going for an hour. And so I'm very grateful to be able to say, like, that was the one thing where if I never get to do this again, I hope I do get the opportunity to interview him again. But if I never do, I really did walk out. And to this day, I do feel like I didn't leave anything on the table. I did not have that feeling of, oh, I wish I'd, said or asked that one thing. I mean, do I have a million more questions if I ever got to do another interview? Sure. But I did feel really good that I kind of left it all on the table in that opportunity.
No, I think, well, again, kudos to you for your preparation, to your interview skills. Obviously, if he got in there and you were a train wreck and, this guy didn't prepare and he's all giddy and he's jumping around and he's bowing down to me, I'm sure he wouldn't have given you the time. So kudos to you. Since the interview, has there been any exchange? Like, I remember you just said a minute ago, well, he doesn't know who I am. Well, he sure does know who you are, right? You're one of few people that have interviewed him. Since then, other than through Twitter, has there been any other connection? Do you foresee another interview in the future?
I mean, I would love to do another one, but you know, who knows? It's now I mean, in a way, it's easier and more difficult with just everything being remote video conference like this. I mean, I sent a handwritten thank you note to his team that I asked them, you know, that they delivered to him, just as because that's just a respectful, you know, thing you should do, I think, when you've had an opportunity like that. So, you know, I just wanted to make sure I expressed my gratitude and appreciation. But yeah, I mean, moving forward, I'd certainly, I would love the opportunity to sit down with him again. Who knows if it'll ever happen?
I love it. I love it. All right. So again, for those of you just joining, you're muted. Thank you. We're with Ryan McCaffrey, host of Ride the Lightning podcast. If you have questions, please chat them in. Again, I have a whole list of questions, but if there's something that Ryan says that sparks a question, please chat them into me, guys. So we're going to switch gears. Are we okay, Ryan, if we get off Elon? Because I have
I was just glancing over my screens. I was glancing over at the chat over here.
Yep. So let me ask you, we're in New York State. We have quite a few Teslas in this state. You wouldn't think so, Northeast part. I hear you talk on your podcast a lot about inclement weather, but we have quite a few. And one of the things that we found when we go by a Tesla, I'm sure you're familiar with the Jeep wave, right? Everybody says it's a Jeep thing, right? And they wave. But we all wave to each other here, right? We all kind of wave. My wife laughs. Like, I've had people beep, almost swerve and hit me just to say hi. But I can't imagine in California, there's millions. So has that gone by the wayside? Was it like that years ago? What do you see with that?
Unfortunately, but also fortunately, yeah, we don't have that anymore. I say fortunately because they're so widespread that it's just a common thing. You know what I mean? So in the sense, that's good. You want the electric cars, the Teslas, to be so ubiquitous that like nobody waves at each other anymore. But that's true. Unfortunately, that sort of special, you know, acknowledgement of, hey, you know, we've got this thing in common. Like, that's kind of gone away. I was lucky that when I first got my Model 3, because I held out. I have a day one reservation, or had a day one reservation, but I held out for the performance model. I knew all along that's what I wanted, and so I got my car at the end of July of 2018. That was when the first couple days they started delivering performance models. I was one of those. And so, but that was coincidentally, that was also the time that they finally hit their production ramp and started to get cars out on a pretty large scale basis. And so the first couple months I had mine, I would wave to people because they weren't totally commonplace everywhere yet around here. And I would say maybe half the time people would wave back. And I guess it was great. I'm envious of you guys in that regard because, I mean, I don't know how you guys all feel about it. I imagine you feel the same way, but when I would wave to another Tesla owner and they would wave back, or if they would initiate and wave at me, it totally made my day. Like, it just makes you feel good. Like, what, you know, just a positive human, you know, stranger interaction, which, you know, is so rare in our society these days.
You're 100%.
So yeah, I loved it. Now, I'm hoping that I will be able to get a little bit of that back with the Tesla Roadster in a year or two, because that'll be such a, that will be rare. And just because it'll be low volume, where if I wave at somebody, they'll be more inclined to wave back. So I'm hoping to recapture a little bit of that.
All right. I love it. Okay. Quick question, short answer, and then second question you can expand on. How's that? Your listeners, for those of you that don't know, are literally all over the world. If you listen to Ryan, you hear people calling from Australia and Africa and Italy. I mean, literally all over the world. So first, tell me roughly, ballpark, how many listeners do you think tune in weekly?
So I've got about 25 to 30,000 people a week.
Okay. So think about that, guys. 25 to 30,000. I kind of know the answer to this, but nowhere near what you might say. You have some people on the inside, right? When I say inside, like you have Tesla employees that are fans of yours. Are there any other Tesla insiders where you kind of get some information? Because you're always coming up with this information. I think I'm plugged in, right? And then I hear you and say, I'm clueless what's going on in the Tesla community. So tell me, well, first, do you have people on the inside of Tesla? Let's talk about that first.
Sometimes it depends. Sometimes, people come and go too. So, sometimes
Okay.
you'll have somebody that'll tip you off on something, but then they might move on from the job and not work there anymore. And, sometimes you get a new person that reaches, so
Okay.
it's always a fluid situation with that stuff.
Okay. So when it comes to like having so much knowledge, are you just digging harder than we are and making it almost a second full-time job? Because you get these news things that you bring up. And like I said, I'm not even hearing, I get my news from you.
Well, good. I mean, that means I'm doing, if I'm hopefully providing a service. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's mostly just, I consume everything. So it's like, which the thing is, I would do that if I wasn't doing a podcast. And in fact, I was doing that before I do it. That's one of the reasons I started doing a podcast. I was like, I should just make a podcast out of this and put it out. Because my wife's not the one that has to, be my audience for this stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say I don't get my own like scoops too often. I'm mostly just what I hope is a very, I hope I'm an aggregate that's doing my best to package things up for people in a, enjoyable, informative, digestible way, where you don't have to be like an insane maniac like me and be like tuned into everything.
Right. So when it comes to the word influence, okay, I hear you again multiple times say, hey, if anybody from Tesla is listening, I mean, not only the words that come out of your mouth, but some of the callers that call in at the end, you think that your listeners, the podcast is getting to the mothership and you've been able to influence some change?
I don't know about the influencing change part, but I know for a fact that there are people in the right places that are listening to it.
That's
I
amazing.
won't go further into it than that. And it's not to say, don't take that as like, oh, Elon listens. No, he for sure doesn't listen. I suspected when I sat down to interview him that he, again, didn't know who I was, had never heard the podcast. And through the course of interviewing him, it was clear, like, yeah, he's not, because I don't think Elon listens to any podcast because the guy's doing 7,000 things at once. But yeah, no, there are people at Tesla that are paying attention to the podcast. So like, that's when I am serious when like a caller calls in with a good suggestion, a good idea, or something, I know it's going to get heard. So that's, I'm happy to help be a mouthpiece for those, valid, constructive criticisms or valid suggestions.
I love it. Well, you call yourself a fanboy, and like you say, 95% of what you tell us is positive. We live in a world right now, especially the last year, where there's so much negativity. And frankly, I tune into for you to get me all jacked up and happy, and you do that. But if you had to say, here's an area of improvement that I think Tesla can capitalize on. And I kind of have my own opinion, but I'm curious to what yours is. Where do you think they can show some improvement, just across the board?
The two big ones are build quality. Not everybody's car is like riddled with problems, but there's a long way for them to go to really tighten these cars up straight from the factory. And number two is service. And it looks like they are making an investment in service. And I know that some people, like, depending where you live, service might be amazing. You might have a service center that's just on it and gets you in with no waiting times. And I know that answer can be very different depending where you are. And I'm here in the bubble, right? I'm near the mothership. I've got my choice of 2 service centers within 15 minutes either direction. Wow. So I recognize the sort of home field advantage that gives me because Tesla's based here. But yeah, like the wait, if you God forbid are in an accident where you're awaiting like a body repair, that can take a while to wait for, waiting for the parts from Tesla, just general service. So yeah, I think it's out of the factory build quality, and the speed, not necessarily the quality of it. I think the quality of service is generally good, but the speed of that service needs to improve.
All right, I cannot agree with you more when it comes to service. We're actually spoiled here in the Finger Lakes region. Actually, in Rochester, New York, we have a service center here that's been here for a couple of years.
Great.
We're fighting with the dealer associations. Is it a gallery? It's a store, and we could talk forever about that. But most people here know that. Maybe offline, I can talk to you about that. Let's see, some chat coming in. How many Roadsters have you been awarded from referral codes?
So yeah, if you're not familiar with me, or have only been maybe listening more recently, it's the craziest, it's genuinely the craziest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. Where I kind of was in the right place at the right time. I got my car, like I said, July 2018, and right kind of as production took off, which was also right when, all of my audience was waiting for their Model 3s, just like I was. And so I was, again, the right place, right time comes from the fact that I'd been doing the podcast for 3 years at that point. So I had spent the time, I had put in the work to build an audience. And so then when I got my car, got my referral code, and that referral program was running, again, that's where it was just the right time. And a lot of my listeners used my referral code, because I think back then they were offering, I think it was something good. It was like 6 months of free supercharging, I think it was. So there was a genuine incentive to use someone's referral code, even if you're the one, if you're the one using it. So yeah, I was lucky enough. I won the maximum allotted 2 Roadsters during that time, which I have since come to learn very quickly. Even when you just the back of the napkin math, it's the way our tax code is structured in the United States. You basically have to win 2 Roadsters to actually win 1 Roadster, because they're taxed as income. It bumps me up to a crazy high tax bracket. So yeah, I'll I'm selling one to pay for the taxes on both. But again, that's the ultimate first world problem. I wouldn't have kept, if they just both come scot-free, I wouldn't have kept both of them. So no, again, craziest thing that's ever happened to me. I was in the right place, right time. I won 2 of them through the program, and yeah, I'm very much looking forward to. My plan is to keep one of them forever. I mean, because I grew up, like I said, northern New Jersey, as middle, like just down the road, middle class. I guess I'm probably middle class now. I don't know what the standard is these days, but of course, out here in the Bay Area, everything's like
a little different than
you guys live in. I mean, New York's expensive too, but anyway, right. It is like what I say to people is a $250,000 supercar should not happen to a person in my lot in life. Like it's an insane thing. And I'm incredibly grateful and humbled by it. And I will say, like, this may sound like but I promise you, when I say, I'm being very genuine when I say it still doesn't feel real. Like, right. I don't think it will actually really sink in until delivery day, until it's time to until it's in front of me and it's like, here you go. Right. But, yeah, I can't wait. It's the craziest thing ever. And I'm just like,
good.
I'm so humbled by it.
Good. That's awesome. Good for you. All right. Switching gears a little bit. You ready? The new Model 2, maybe the $25,000 car that we keep hearing a lot about. You're plugged in. Tell us your thoughts on that. Is it a reality? Is it going to happen? If so, when do you think?
Oh, for sure. It's happening. And just talked about, I was on, might be the current episode, the one that's because since the new one's not out till tomorrow. Pardon me. There was that Tesla China publicly acknowledged that they plan to unveil it at the end of this year. So that is a step ahead of what Elon's, when he first mentioned this at Battery Day. Because remember, it was just September at Battery Day when he said, yep, we're planning a $25,000 car in the next few years. And I was like, okay, that's going to be awesome. And now, 4 months later, 5 months later, we're unveiling it at the end of the year. Like, whoa, okay, so awesome.
We kind of heard that as well, the China piece. In terms of production here in the United States, you think that's a ways off, or do you think it'll piggyback right behind it?
That's hard to say. I mean, there's nowhere for them to build it here currently.
Right.
There's plenty of space they can, there's plenty of room at Giga Shanghai for them to introduce that car.
What about Texas? I know, like, for Texas, it's going to be Cybertruck and then East Coast, everything else, right? In terms of model.
Yeah, but right. But I guess by here, I just meant the United States in general, in the sense of you've got,
I see what you're
there, it's going to be the Y and the Cybertruck in Texas to start with. And then here in Fremont, they're packed to the rafters. By the way, if you ever get a chance to do a factory tour as Tesla owners, you are entitled to that, one per year. If you're ever in the San Francisco Bay Area, you got to book it way ahead of time, but make time. It is the tour is amazing, just as a side note. But yeah, you're right, Rick. There is no room here, so they would probably need to just add on to the Texas facility in order to do the Model 2, because they cannot. There's no place to put that car, especially it's going to be the highest volume car, right?
Sure.
So there's no room for that here. So they'd have to add on. They've got plenty of land in Texas, so they just have to build the facility out further to do that.
Good. You mentioned Battery Day. I want to come back to that in a second, but let's talk Cybertruck. And right now, this kind of goes with the Battery Day question, so I'll kind of put this aside for a second. Is it really going to look like what we saw? You actually sat in, I don't know if people realize that, you actually took a ride around the parking lot when it was unveiled. Do you truly think there'll be subtle differences, or is this what it's going to look like, what we saw?
I will answer that. But first, I'm just kind of curious, because I do a monthly Google Hangout for people at a certain tier of my Patreon. That's how I do keep this podcast going, is I'm on Patreon, which, if you're not familiar, is kind of like it's a way to support creators. So it's, you pledge, $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever it is. And then I offer little rewards on the back of that. And at a couple of the tiers, I do a monthly Google Hangout, which is basically just this. I do this once a month with those people. And the reason I bring that up is not to shamelessly promote my Patreon, but it's because I've pulled those rooms the last couple of Hangouts that I've done. The next one's going to be next week, actually. And it's like most of those people in that room have Cybertruck reservations. So as people across New York State, I'm curious. I don't know if people just want to type like me or yes or whatever. You said there's 20 something people in this room. How many people in here have Cybertruck reservations and intend to buy a Cybertruck? I'm just kind of curious.
Guys, your physical hand or your digital hand, you have the ability to hit participants and click on your digital hand. I'm seeing a lot going up there. Let's see.
I want to know what the percentage is of this room, because
I'm guessing, again, just from what I'm seeing on the participant panel and hands coming up, maybe 50%.
50. I mean, see, think about that. Like I doubt 50% of you are buying the Model Y, or even necessarily like 50. That tells you like the Cybertruck is going to be a very, very popular vehicle. Now, granted, we're all Tesla owners already. The point of the Cybertruck is they need to, they're wanting to bring in truck people that aren't already EV owners or EV enthusiasts. But that tells you like they're on to something. And it's I expect a lot of you, I mean, not everybody, but I'll bet a lot of you went through the same exact thought process on the Cybertruck as I did, because I was fortunate enough to be in the room. I was over on the right. So the when they unveiled the Cybertruck, there was a smoke machine, and then a garage door lift opened, and and then it came out like basically in front of me, and then went up onto the stage. So I was on the side of the stage where the truck came out, and I'm way back. There's a lot of people in front of me, so I don't have like a super clear look at it. But I see this polygon come out of the garage, and it goes on stage, and my first reaction was, oh no, what has Elon done? This is a disaster. This is awful. This is
your point. I think everybody has said that. I know where you're going.
But yeah, but in the span of about 48 hours, it was the function that won me over.
Yep.
Like low price point, the stainless steel, which again I mentioned earlier, I was a DeLorean owner. I've owned the only other production stainless steel bodied car made in history. Right. And I know the advantages of I wish my Model 3 was a stainless steel car. That's how much I love stainless and hate having to care for paint.
Right.
But anyway, so I started that. Oh, so your question ultimately was, that was a long-winded way of me polling the room and asking. So we've kind of all now come around on the Cybertruck. And yeah, I think the only major difference that we'll probably see, and again, this is my own speculation, I don't have any inside anything on it, but I would just mentally prepare yourself for it to have side view mirrors, because the government regulation hasn't changed on that. We don't allow yet in this country cars to have camera side mirrors. So it'll probably look weird with side view mirrors just because it was unveiled to us without them. But yeah, I think otherwise it's going to look the same. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, our president of the club, Patrick, has 3 reservations. So
that's a lot of Cybertrucks.
He didn't. I could probably mention it now on the call. He's given one to me. So I'm pretty excited for all the work I'm doing in the Finger Lakes area. Thank you again, Patrick. We'll talk later. All right.
Can I have
battery
one?
day?
Because he's got 3. Let's no, it's
yeah, I wish. You ready for a battery day question?
Sure.
Okay. With the new tabless batteries, will there be a different home charger that works faster? And would such a unit also meet the needs of current models? And maybe you want to talk a little bit for those that aren't familiar with, the new tabless batteries.
Yeah, I mean, well, the short version is the Tesla's new 4680 battery cells are they're just these bigger, fatter things, but they're also way more energy dense. They're much simpler to make, and they're just better by every metric, and they are the future of Tesla. Those battery cells, and the way they're going to be integrated into the cars as a structural battery pack. So that'll eliminate more weight, that'll eliminate more complexity. It'll make the cars actually more structurally sound.
Yep.
It'll improve handling because there'll be fewer cells and they can pack them closer to the center of the car so that you've got less weight at the outer edges of the car. And that's Daisy chugging water behind me, if you're wondering what that sound is. But I don't think Tesla can ever change the plug itself, because you've got now 1 million plus cars with this thing. Now, could they introduce a higher capacity home charger? Definitely, but I don't think that's honestly going to be necessary, because they've actually Tesla's gone down in home charger output. Like if any of you out there are early Model S owners, you had an 80 amp onboard charger on your car, or have if you still have the car, and the original wall connector could feed that, and you could charge pretty quickly. But over time, Tesla has kind of simplified that. The onboard chargers of the car are a little lower amp output, and so but even now, like I have my Model 3 and I have the Gen 2, not the current one, the Generation 2 wall charger. And in my Model 3, it'll do, what is it? I think it's 40 41 miles. Actually, I never even pay attention to it anymore because I plug it in at night, but I believe it maxes out at like 41 miles per hour of charge, which is
it's
still pretty
interesting.
quick.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because actually a follow-up question, and I'm embarrassed to say I'm not quite sure, but I want to get the question out. Somebody asked it. Talking specifically what you just mentioned, the Gen 2, and they said HPWC, which I had to look up because I didn't know.
High power wall connector.
High power wall connector. Will the Cybertruck charge with that? Do you know?
I would bet $1,000 that it will. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, there's no doubt. But they're not gonna. There's no way there'll be any kind of like proprietary charging. Now, the only thing with the Cybertruck is if you get the 500-mile version, the tri-motor version, that's going to have we don't know how big the battery pack is going to be, but probably almost definitely larger than the largest, the 100 kilowatt pack that's in the S's and X's now. Although, again, the Cybertruck will probably be the 4680 cells, those new battery cells, which are more energy dense. So they might be able to get more range. In fact, seemingly they'll be able to get more range out of fewer kilowatt hours. So maybe it will end up being like 100 kilowatt hours of the 4680 cells that'll get them 500 miles of range. I don't quite know. That stuff is still, we don't know all the secret sauce that Tesla's working on with that, and quite what the total end result real world output's going to be of that stuff.
Right. So staying one more question on batteries, because I want to get to some of these. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but coming through the chat, how concerned are you with the chip and nickel shortages that we're hearing about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just hearing about this stuff too. With the Fremont was shut down, the factory was shut down for 2 days at the beginning of this week. Yeah, I mean, I don't know any more than anyone else does. I would imagine that Tesla is hopefully smart enough to have taken all of this into consideration weeks and months ago and be able to plan for this. But yeah, I mean, who knows at the end of the day? I mean, that's where Tesla being vertically integrated in a lot of ways helps them. Like the more, because they're not subject to external forces quite as much as other car companies are. But the chips still have to come from somewhere, right? So yeah, who knows? We'll see.
Good stuff. Question for you, and you'll see where I'm going here in a minute. I can't remember. I know you've mentioned this. Are you an Apple guy or Android guy?
On my phone, I have an iPhone, but I'm a Windows desktop PC guy. So I kind of I'm dipped in both worlds.
All right. How about you have any insight about Tesla working with Apple to pair the watch with the car to work like with an iPhone pairing?
Yeah, Elon. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, I kind of remember you talking about this or kind of mentioning it.
A lot of people have asked for it. I've had plenty of callers to my podcast bring it up. Elon finally addressed that on Twitter not that long ago, in the last, 5-6 months. I can't keep track of time anymore. But yeah, Elon basically said the short version is they're not doing it. Okay. My guess is that it's purely a resource allocation thing. Like, there's only so many people that have Apple Watches, and there's then other people that have other smartwatches or don't wear a smartwatch at all. And Tesla's teams are very small. Like, they don't have thousands of people on this stuff the way that the legacy automakers tend to. They are a very small, nimble operation in all fields. And so I imagine the software team, they just figure they've got other priorities rather than, doing an ultimately unnecessary, key application for the watch when, you can just use your phone. So it'd be nice to have, and someday when Tesla is a mega profitable, like just juggernaut, and they have more resources to hire more people to do stuff like that, I'm sure we'll get one eventually, but it sounds like it won't be anytime soon.
All right. So there's been kind of a theme in terms where I've been going. Cybertruck Battery Day. Now I just got to go all over the board because questions are coming in and we only have about 12 minutes left. So you interviewed Elon. We didn't mention, for those of you that watch the podcast, Ryan interviewed Franz as well. would there be anybody else from Tesla if they said knocked on your door or you had the opportunity again, who you would interview from Tesla?
Definitely. And I'll give a quick self promotion here real quick. If you do want to go listen to my Elon interview, if you're not, you don't listen to me or whatever, it was good. It was fittingly and coincidentally, by the way, episode 200 was my Elon. That's celebrating in style. Episode 200 was my Elon interview. And then Franz was episode 220. So not just a few months later. But yeah, to answer your question, there are two people, but probably in order, I would say, Andre Carpathy, who heads the autopilot team. I follow him on Twitter, and his brain, he's clearly like, he's got that Uber programmer brain which it's like just reading his words. This guy's clearly like smarter on his worst day than I'll ever be. So I would love to interview him. And I mean, I wouldn't be asking questions on his level because I'm not that smart, but I would love to interview him just as an average Tesla owner who uses autopilot every day, and sort of talk to him about what's coming up. And then the other person after him, I would love to get Jerome Guillen, who is now the head of automotive. So there's the energy side of the business and the automotive side, but more specifically, Jerome he's heading up the Tesla Semi project. And even though probably none of us in this room are going to be Tesla Semi owners, it's not really for us, I'd still love to sit down with him and talk to him about the Tesla Semi. I think that'd be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I think all of us are just chomping at the bit to see those, driving around on the road as well. How many, speaking of the Semi, isn't there like some major companies like, and I'm just guessing, Walmart, like they're waiting in line for these things? And
okay. Yeah, they've back after it was unveiled. Yeah, you had all these public announcements of Walmart ordering this many, and I think like Anheuser-Busch ordering this many, and all these big companies, putting in orders for them.
Corey, thanks. Pepsi as well. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Green the Only. He's a guy that follows you. And for those of you that aren't aware, and please, Ryan, correct me if I'm not saying this correctly, but he's like a hacker. And
he's a white hat hacker. Yeah.
Okay.
He's a good guy.
Good guy, right.
Good guy hacker.
Clarify that. Thank you. And he hacks into the software in Tesla to see what's coming, like that we don't know.
Right.
Anything, I know you've talked a lot about him over the years. Anything lately that he's seen that you could tell us is coming into the software that we might not know about?
Yeah, his new find this week, which I talked about on the podcast I recorded last night that comes out tomorrow, is cloud profiles. Tesla's going to be moving all of our driver profiles to the cloud, which means if you end up being a multi-Tesla household, like maybe you have a 3 now and you want to add a Y to your household later, you can hop in the Y and all your settings from your 3 will just be there, which will be really cool. Like just, all your seat settings, all your navigation settings, autopilot settings, all that stuff. So that will be really cool.
That is really cool. Again, jumping all over the place. All of your episodes, is there one episode that really kind of sticks out to you that particular year? Something that just said, Rick, I'll never forget this, other than Elon and Franz, of course.
Well, that's the answer. Yeah.
Let's push that aside. Is there something specifically that you'll say, Rick, I'll never forget this because it was the release of whatever?
That's a good question. I would say the episode that I did right after the Model 3 unveiling so that was March 31st, 2016. So whatever episode was right after that, I don't know what number it was. 30 something. I think that was pretty early on, but that one I remember because, I camped out overnight. I don't know if any of you did. New York, it was probably a little chillier in late March than it was here in the San Francisco area, but there were a lot of us. We camped out overnight to line up to get our reservations when the Tesla store opened the next day. And so that was an interesting, fun experience. And during the course of that, I I interviewed some of my fellow people waiting in line. So there's some like literal man on the street stuff in that podcast. And then that night, so I camped out overnight, got my reservation, went home, and then I got on a plane and flew to LA to be at the Model 3 unveiling that night.
Wow.
So I had, and I had audio from my test ride in the Model 3 that night where I got a couple of good questions answered by the Tesla rep. And so I just kind of like was actually able to capture that from like the actual like being there. It was, it was probably the closest Ride the Lightning has ever been to real reporting. Like actually like I was there and here's, here's a taste of what it was like to be there at this stuff. So yeah, that one I'm pretty proud of it now that you make me think about it.
That's good. All right, I got time for one more question, and then
I can definitely hang for an extra 10 minutes or so. I mean, I want to be respectful of everybody else's time, but yeah, if there's this many questions, I definitely can hang for a bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely do that, and if you have to go, you guys could leave. But thank you, Ryan. Coming in through chat, like to see more truck variants, straight chassis of the semi delivery trucks like Ford Transit, minivans. I know there's been rumors. I mean, we could sit here and speculate forever, and I realize a lot of this is your own opinion, but again, being plugged in more than we are. Opinions on that?
That's all stuff. I'm sure if Elon were in the room in the chat with us right now, he'd be like, yeah, that would be great to do, but it's all battery restraints. It's all supply. There's not enough batteries to do everything that we would like to see Tesla do, and that probably Tesla would like to see get done. And that's just it. I mean, and that's what the point of Battery Day was, right? Like, this new battery architecture and the pilot plant, the pilot battery facility that they're doing right here, just down the road, that if the more gigawatt hours of battery they're able to produce, and the more energy dense each cell that they make is, that means that they can, get more energy out of fewer cells. So that means they can make more cars. And so it's all like, it's just crazy how it all adds up. And so, yeah, I mean, it's that they said at Battery Day, their goal is to make 20 million cars a year by 2030. If they get halfway there, they'd be making 10 million cars a year by 2030. That's half there, because that's a thing. We've seen with Tesla over the years. Elon says some crazy thing and everyone's like, that'll never happen, you're nuts. But no, it totally happens. It just usually takes longer than he says it's going to. So so yeah, it's like, even if they're at 10 million cars in 9 years from now, 10 years from now, think about that. They just did 500,000 cars in 2020. If they're even at 10 million, that's a hell of an increase. So, they'll be well on their way to try and, to be able to do stuff like, minivans and transit vans and other variants of pickup truck and things like that.
For those of you that don't know Ryan or his podcast, Ryan, you do a great job. And you do this frequently where you crunch these numbers, and I'm driving and you're like, if they did this, and 3 years ago they were here, and 4 years ago they were there. And it's just amazing how you lay out the numbers, and then you see the trajectory. It's crazy. Speaking of trajectory, we understand Elon's vision, right? We all know it in terms of his goal for sustainable energy. He doesn't care if he comes in seconds, years from now, and he's looking up at Ford or BMW or whatever. And we're seeing more and more, and we're seeing all these states saying by 2035, right, we're not going to see any more gas powered vehicles. If you had to pick one company that's either there or you kind of heard of, that's going to give them a run for their money, what are your thoughts?
I mean, no one's I've said this before. I will say, I'll try to give an optimistic answer to this. I think Chrysler might be the first of the big three to just die. And I don't say that with any joy. Like, that would be a lot of jobs that would be lost. But like, you look at Chrysler, they have no plan. There is no electric vehicle plan. They make some cool cars. I mean, they've got the retro muscle car thing on lock.
Right.
Like the
Right.
Charger, the Challenger, the Hellcat. Those things are cool. But like, there is no plan for now. You've got, as you said, states and countries that are saying, we're not going to allow us the sales of gas cars anymore, new ones. So, you know, I think Tesla could replace Chrysler in the so-called big three, if that's even going to be a thing of American automakers anymore. But to answer your question, I mean, the Volkswagen Group is the only, they are best positioned now in the sense of, okay, yes, the Porsche Taycan is $180,000
Look at
on
the
up.
price. Exactly.
But now, like, they just unveiled the Audi, what is it, like the GT S3? I forget the name of it, but they're basically like a cousin to the Taycan that's a little cheaper. Okay, still expensive, but a great car. And then, but then, you know, the ID4 is their SUV that's going to be recently, like, they seem to be the only ones really taking it seriously. Yeah, like BMW has no plan. Like, they had the i3 and the i8, and
which was ugly.
They seem to have walked away from those. I mean, yeah, it was the i3, the carbon fiber structure on that was amazing, but which Sandy Monroe's talked about. But yeah, I don't see, like, Nissan, they've got the Leaf, but their CEO got arrested or what? Like, the guy that was like kind of the big champion of the Leaf is persona non grata in the car industry. And there unfortunately just don't seem to be today a lot of actual challengers.
I think that as well. I just didn't know if you were gonna, take something from left field and say, Rick, watch out for these guys.
I mean, and even saying the Volkswagen Group is cheating, because that's a bunch of car companies, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they're all under one umbrella. But yeah, like, I wouldn't say just Volkswagen or just Audi or just Porsche, but taken together. So, hey, I'm rooting like hell for the Taycan to be widely adopted by Porsche owners, because, it's that effect which we saw with the Model S, where, the Model S started out very expensive, and now it's like, the people that could afford those bought those, love them, and now, like, oh, well, they have a second car that's a 3 or a Y, and as they come down market. And hopefully, I hope the Taycan does well enough where the Porsche guys go, this is awesome. And then, maybe their spouse, their partner for the family gets, if Porsche decides to do an electric Cayenne or Macan, the SUV, and, hopefully it starts to kind of come down and to the rest of it that way. And it's obviously, it's got to be more than just Porsche. They're an upscale brand. So, but yeah,
so let me ask you this.
It's tough.
10 years from now, when the landscape's changed and they're here or wherever, do you ever see yourself looking at another EV, or are you saying, Rick, no way?
I mean, never say never, right? Because things change. Like, if, let's say, Elon leaves the company in 5 years, and management, like the new management, runs it into the ground. It's certainly happened with other once great, amazing companies. So never say never. I hope to goodness that never happens. But yeah, it's like, you just never quite know where, how things are going to go in either direction. Either, if things are going to go downhill, or somebody else is going to come in. And, there's the rumor of Apple coming in, maybe partnering with Hyundai to do an Apple car. Like, who knows, right? Like, it's kind of the Wild West right now with the car industry, because this EV transition is coming, whether these car companies want it to or not. And most of them seem to not want it to come. They've had their heads in the sand. While, Tesla gave them every opportunity. The Model S came out in 2012, won car of the year, And they were all like, whatever, that's
right.
we don't have to worry about that. And then the Model 3 came around in 2017 and they were like, they'll never build enough of those, whatever. And now Tesla's belly is full from eating all the lunches of all the other competing car companies like the BMW 3 Series and all these, so it's hopefully these guys wake up pretty soon.
Yep. Yeah. And I know you're not a big, as you say on your podcast, I'm not a financial analyst, but just look at the stock, right? Just look at the stock and then we won't go there. But let me, insurance, any new updates on Tesla insurance? I know that's, it's something that's just kind of hanging out there.
Yeah, they don't talk about it much. I think the last earnings call, the Zach Kirkhorn, the CFO, said they're getting ready to roll it out to other states. I imagine you guys probably don't have access to it yet. It started here in California. So yeah, who knows on that? But yeah, I don't, and who knows what that, like what level of priority Tesla insurance is within the company, right? Like it might be a thing that two people are working on,
Exactly.
Who knows?
You say that a lot on your podcast. I think that's very, poignant, where you have to think of where the resources are going to go. Like you said, with the Apple Watch. So we're wrapping up here. There's people hear you on your podcast, the few of you that are here or that follow you here, and they always hear about Daisy the boxer puppy. And I know these boxers weigh quite a bit, but do you think you could just do one of these and kind of show us?
She's just here. Let me see if I can. Hold on.
Yeah,
Where's
Gordon's
my camera?
excited.
There she is. She's just kind of hanging out.
Oh, that's cute.
She's just hanging out.
She knows it's. Listen, Ryan, we are in a time that none of us have seen before, right? And we're struggling ourselves. Prior to COVID, we had all these fun things in the Finger Lake area and throughout the state, and we're getting together and eating and having fun and going to Watkins Glen, which is a NASCAR racetrack here, and we're doing our best to try to keep our members excited and energized. And boy, you did that for us. You're a humble guy. You're always saying, well, I'm just a normal guy, but not every normal guy interviews Elon Musk. So we're so appreciative that you took the time to be here with us. If there's any last minute things that you want to say, we would love to hear from you. I know that now word's going to spread within our club about you, and hopefully we'll get some more followers. Any last minute things you'd like to say?
I just appreciate people giving, an hour of their Saturday here, because I say this on my podcast all the time. Time's the most valuable commodity we have. It's not money, it's time. It's, we can't buy any more of that. So, I just appreciate people hanging out. And that's the thing. I love doing this stuff because, that's why I do the podcast, is because I'm so enthusiastic about Tesla and the company, yes, but the cars. Ultimately, I'm a car guy. I got into this because I love the cars. I drove the Roadster and I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And then the Model S came along and that's an amazing car. And of course, and then the X comes along. And again, for me, bizarrely, with my DeLorean history, the Model X is the first production vehicle since the DeLorean to have gull wing doors. I know that, Tesla calls them falcon wing doors because of the extra hinge, and now here we go again. The Cybertruck, the first stainless steel bodied car since the DeLorean. So it's kind of weirdly worked out for me, all these strange things, but I do this because I love these cars and I love what Tesla is doing. And I love talking to other people who share that enthusiasm. So yeah, if you want to go further down the rabbit hole, I'm on pretty much every major podcast service. If you want to take a listen to the podcast sometime, it's even in your car. So it's either through TuneIn or if you've got Spotify Premium and you've got that logged into your car, I'm on Spotify as well. So you can listen to it in two places on your car, or of course just download it on your phone and then just play it through the Bluetooth in your car. If the car is where you listen to the podcast, maybe you like to do podcasts while you're out jogging or walking the dog, whatever. But so I'm here every week because I'm crazy and that's just what I do.
Well, you do an amazing job. Listen, I'm gonna make it out to California sometime when this COVID thing is done.
Oh, and yeah,
Excuse
on
me.
that note, anybody that ever, I'm dead serious about this because I talk about how the Roadster is a thing that should not have happened to me. I say this with all sincerity. If any of you guys ever come out to San Francisco, next year onwards, after all this is over and after the Roadsters start getting delivered, I will give anyone a ride in that car because I just want to share. I want to share that joy with everyone because again, it's like I it's I would want someone to do that for me. Like if I were in town and someone was like, "Hey, I've got a Roadster. I want to come take a ride." I'd be like, "Yes, I do." So yeah, if any, come on out to San Francisco and look me up.
Well, listen, like I started to say, my wife and I like to travel. We will make it out there. I'm going to take you up on it. I have
Please.
this little corner we call Cogs Vlogs or Cogs Corner on our YouTube channel. I'd love to interview you again. Just maybe, and they're only like 5-6 minutes. Maybe it's you like peeling away from me at $1.30 or something like that. But I would love to do something with you. And again, it might be 6 months from now, it might be 2 years, but I will take you up on that.
Great.
Ryan, you're a good guy. If people weren't muted, they'd be thanking you. Give a big thumbs up if you liked Ryan. Maybe we'll get him back. Thank you, Ryan. We appreciate your time, and you have a great week.
I really appreciate it, everybody. Thank you so much. This was super fun for me. Thank you.